Hey guys, it's Libby. Welcome to my December wrap-up. Finally, 2020 is done. 2021, honestly, first week, not great. But there's 51 more, you know? How bad could it possibly be? So I have a lot of books to talk to y'all about in this video. So I feel super behind with reading for most of 2020. And my normal Goodreads goal is 70 books. If I'm doing really well, I'll up that to 100, but I was not doing really well. In fact, I needed to read 20 books in December in order to catch up. And at the beginning of December, I was kind of like, you know, I think I can do this. I had a pretty solid nonfiction November. I even read some fiction. And I was like, let's do it. Let's read 20 books. However, I did not want to bullshit it. I didn't want to like just read a bunch of picture books or like a bunch of short stories or just like a whole graphic novel series or like a whole comic series. I was like, I'm only going to do this if it's not bullshit. So there were a couple of short things, but mostly I was trying to read like actual substantive things. So there's a lot of novels, but they're all novels on the shorter side. So I did in fact read 8 novels, 2 plays, 9 short works, which is a pretty even mix of short stories and novellas, and 1 graphic work. So I started off with some middle grade audiobooks. I read the first 2 books in the Morgan Crow series, Nevermoor, The Trials of Morgan Crow, and Wundersmith, The Calling of Morgan Crow. Is it meant to be pronounced Morrigan or Morrigan? I don't know. Sometimes it got a little accent, the fada on the I. Yeah, so these are like quite popular. I'm sure you all have heard of them. I had kind of been waiting until like a critical mass had come out. Honestly, I've been waiting for Jessica Townsend to get a website. I was like, I'm not gonna take you seriously until you have a website. But then I was like, you know, I need to read a lot of books, so middle grade is your friend. So there are currently 3 books out. We do not have a publication date for the 4th. I'm not even 100% sure that there's going to be a 4th. So I haven't read the 3rd one because I'm like, okay, I have it in reserve, so like I can get to it whenever I want, which means I don't have to read it right now. But once I read the 3rd, I'm gonna have to wait who knows how long until the 4th one comes out. And so, yeah, I'm kind of like trying to hold off on the 3rd. Although if there are only 3 books and this is a trilogy, then I feel completely stupid. And please tell me so that I can stop being stupid. Yeah, so these are, they are compared to Harry Potter a lot, and like the initial chapters do have a lot of, similarities to Harry Potter, not really in the tone, because this is set in a fully secondary world. It's not set in the real world, even the real world of the 1990s, which was less real than many other decades. So yeah, we've got Morgan, who lives with her father, stepmother, and grandmother. Her whole family is mean to her. Her whole town is mean to her because she is like cursed. She was born, they have this whole complex calendar system. And you know, she was born on like a bad day. So all the bad things that happen in town are blamed on her. Then she's also supposed to die she expects it to be her 12th birthday, but it actually kind of looks like it's going to be her 11th birthday. However, on her 11th birthday, a man with a very strange appearance arrives and tells her, you're a wizard, Morrigan. Or he tells her that she has been invited to apply or like go through the trials for the Wondrous Society, which is a society of people with like supernatural and also natural but extremely good talents. So Morgan doesn't know what her special talent is, but Jupiter North, her patron, it tells her not to worry about that. So book 1 is focused on her trials to get into the Wondrous Society and also her time living at Jupiter's like fabulous hotel with all of the other people who work in his hotel, including like a very large cat, a vampire dwarf who is a really excellent event organizer, I don't want to give too much away. So I really enjoyed this. I gave both of these books 5 stars. They're probably like a 4.75. I was kind of thinking that like Morrigan as a character is not a particularly complex person. However, I do think that's pretty common in middle grade books. My other favorite middle grade series is the Series of Unfortunate Events, and the 3 main children characters in that book each have like one thing that they do, and like that's their character trait, and then they're good. So I wasn't particularly bothered by the lack of like deep complexity with our main character, because the bad guys are really interesting. This is some of like the most fascinating villains, and there's different levels of badness going on. Some pure evil, and some just rude and obnoxious. So I highly recommend this. Gave both these books 5 stars. Look forward to reading the 3rd one once we have a release date for the fourth one, or if I can no longer resist. Then I read Jamaica Inn by Daphne du Maurier. This is sort of like the 3rd most popular du Maurier book, I believe. So number 1 is Rebecca, number 2 is My Cousin Rachel, and then you've got Jamaica Inn. And this is really quite a dark and depressing book. I know that Rebecca gets compared to Jane Eyre a lot, and I think it's appropriate to compare Jamaica Inn to Wuthering Heights, not really because of any of the plot points, but just because of the tone. Like a large portion of it takes place at night. It's about people who are fairly poor, and also it's about crime. So this is about smuggling, the smuggling off of the coast of Cornwall in southwestern England in the early 19th century. So our main character, whose name I have forgotten, is it Mary? I think it might be Mary, something fairly conventional. I read too many books this year, guys, this month. When you search Jamaica Inn on Google, there are actual inns called Jamaica Inn in Cornwall. I don't know why you would want to stay there. That's right. Okay, Mary Yellen is our protagonist. She's a young person, I don't know, 1920. Her father has been dead for a long time, and at the beginning of the book, her mother dies, and so Mary moves to Jamaica Inn, where her mother's sister lives, and she remembers her mother's sister as being like happy-go-lucky, super fun to hang out with, the classic cool aunt, and she arrives to find this like depressed, afraid, broken woman married to this terrifying man. So Mary kind of just has to like live there and work there. Although Jamaica Inn gets incredibly few customers, and that's because it's a front for a smuggling operation. So I did give this 4 stars, but it's hard to say that I enjoyed it because it's just so often unpleasant. There's a lot of violence. Mary very often has to be concerned about sexual assault, and death in like not fun death, bad death. But the plot is quite compelling, and like gets quite intense towards the end. And there is also a lot of great atmospheric writing about the landscape. So if you're into that sort of thing, you should read Jamaica Inn. If you're like, I want Thomas Hardy, but with brutal violence, as opposed to kind of off-screen violence and emotional violence, read Jamaica Inn. I realized that the first half of this is going to be extremely depressing. I read so many sad things at the beginning of December. Next one is Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. Okay, and I am going to be obnoxious for like 1 minute here. Just give it to me, because I hear a lot of people pronouncing the title of this book wrong. So Giovanni is an Italian name which is pronounced in 3 syllables, Giovanni. It is not Giovanni. In Italian, when an I comes after a G, it's there to tell you how to pronounce the G. It's not meant to be pronounced as its own syllable. I see other people saying it the wrong way, and I'm like, Libby, do not comment on somebody's video telling them that they are saying a word wrong. And so did I read this book in order to be able to tell people how to pronounce this Maybe. No, that's not why. So this is a classic of 20th century queer literature, and man, it is sad. So this is about, what's our main character's name? David, who's an American living in Paris in the 1950s. He is engaged to an American girl who is elsewhere in Europe. She's in Spain for much of the book, although she does eventually come to visit. And it's kind of I'd say it's more a book about being poor in a gay community than about being gay. It's very bleak and depressing. So David and Giovanni are both young men who have a very hard time making money, have a very hard time earning a living. Giovanni is a bartender, and there's a lot of other young men sort of on the periphery who are in this situation who basically have to have a sugar daddy in order to eat. So it's about David and Giovanni's relationship and also their relationships with older men, and how those relationships lead to like really disastrous emotional and practical consequences. And it's a freaking bummer. I gave it 4 stars. Then the laughs just keep on coming with Shakespeare's Richard III. I read this for the Bard Book Club. I'm going to be talking about this play later this month, so we'll just cover it then. For now, I'll say I gave it 4 stars. Then I did, a slightly bullshit, cheaty thing by reading a bunch of short fiction. So CGP Grey, the YouTuber, the educational YouTuber CGP Grey, posted several recordings of him reading short stories on Halloween. And so I just listened to those and broke my phone. What happened? All of these were stories that I had read before, one of them in high school, but 2 of them of my own volition. So the first one was The Monkey's Paw by Diane Mowat. This is about a working class family in, I actually don't know, 19th or 20th century, the 19th or the 20th century, in either England or New England. It's fairly universal. I think it's maybe gotta be England. And a friend of theirs who had been away in the war has come home, and he's incredibly depressed. It's sad. There's gonna be a lot of sad stuff. Telling them that his life has been ruined by this magical monkey's paw that he has received, which grants your wishes, but in terrible ways, and will grant you 3 wishes. He says, I don't want this anymore. You guys should throw this away. But the family's like, no, we want this. And, dire consequences ensue. I gave this 4.5 stars. Then I read for probably the 3rd or 4th time The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, which is a fairly early work of feminist literature about postpartum depression, and it's about how women are treated in a medical context, and about how women are infantilized and how this can make you go insane. So it's about a woman who, this is not stated in the text because it's in the first person, but is clearly experiencing postpartum depression. Her husband is also her doctor, and he advises she just stay in this room with no really mental stimulation. And so she starts staring at the wallpaper, which is this she describes it as hideously yellow with this creepy looking patterns on the wallpaper. It's not clear to what extent that's actually true. And yeah, really fascinating. If you haven't read The Yellow Wallpaper, you absolutely have to. You can do it in an hour at 5 stars. And then the last one from CGP Grey was The Masque of the Red Death by Edgar Allan Poe. Very appropriate for 2020. This is about a plague called the Red Death, which is ravishing probably medieval Italy or something. And it's about a rich man who invites all of his friends to his castle so that they can stay inside in quarantine and be protected while all the poor people die. And you know, it works out great. It's mainly like a lot of it is sort of description of interior design, because the rooms in his castle are all like different colors, so we get sort of the different colors. Imagine what happens in the red room. 4.5 stars to that one as well. Okay, and then I did a Murderbot reread of the novellas, and then I finally read the novel, Network Effect. So I've already talked about the 4 novellas in wrap-ups from, I think, like 2018. I think I did the first 2 in 2018 and the second 2 in 2019. You guys don't need me to tell you about Murderbot. You guys all know about Murderbot. I love them. And then I also read Home, Habitat, Range, Niche, Territory, which is a short story from Dr. Mensah's perspective, which is set after the 4 novellas but before the novel. And then I read the novel Network Effect. These are all by Martha Wells, if I didn't mention. And I'm not gonna lie, I was slightly nervous about switching formats. And Network Effect, I was reading it on Kindle, so you know it's a little bit hard to judge the page length. Was like a lot longer than the novellas. I thought it was maybe gonna be a shorter novel. It's not a short novel. And it kind of maybe slowed me down and made things a bit tense as to whether or not I would finish my 20 books in the month. But I did. So yeah, I can't really tell you anything about plot, but some really cool stuff happens. And I also really enjoyed rereading the novellas, having gotten to the end the first time, because Murderbot is an unreliable narrator in that Murderbot doesn't think of themselves as a person. And so the first time when I was reading the books, I was like, oh, this is a robot with some sentience. But by the time you get to the end of the 4th novella, you're like, oh, this is a person with like a mostly human brain or mostly human psychology. And so going back and rereading them was very rewarding. So if you haven't reread the Murderbot series, I encourage you to do so. And of course, if you haven't read the Murderbot series, what are you doing, son? Okay, that's all of the fun we are allowed for a little bit, because the next book I read was My Sister the Serial Killer by Oyinkan Braithwaite. This is a fairly recent book set in Nigeria, and it's about a woman named Korede, who is a nurse, and her sister keeps murdering her boyfriends. Her sister keeps murdering her own boyfriends, not Korede's boyfriends. Korede does not have boyfriends. Korede is the only person who knows about these murders because her sister gets her like medical knowledge, like since she's a nurse, she's very good at cleaning up messes of blood and such and other bodily fluids, and disposing of bodies. So yeah, Korede keeps finding herself roped into cleaning up and concealing these bodies, and her sister keeps insisting that like she murdered them in self-defense and they were attacking her, but there keeps never being any evidence of that. And then, oh my god, Ayula, the sister, like starts flirting with the guy that Korede has a crush on at work. We're doomed. So this was, I didn't love this. I think the characters were a bit too simplistic. Like it really reads a lot like a Cinderella story. Ayula is more attractive, like remarkably attractive. Like men and women immediately stare at her when she walks into a room, jaws drop, drool on the floor, whatever. Whereas Korede is not. No one takes a second look at her. Ayula is like lazy, doesn't do any housework. She is rude to the household staff. She dresses provocatively, and I just found this to be like a really simplistic and possibly even misogynistic way of constructing a female villain. So I was kind of reserving judgment to see like, are we going to bring in some fairy tale elements? Which would, I mean, I wouldn't, this is absolutely not a Cinderella retelling. But like, yeah, I thought perhaps it could be, or there could be something else like that. And so like, oh, so we are meant to read this allegorically or archetypally or something, or is there going to be some like twist at the end this is like that makes us recontextualize things? And yeah, not really. I think just I think the plot could have stayed the same, and if you just had less exaggerated and one-dimensional characters, this would have easily been 4 stars, but instead it's like 2.75. Then I read a book that I maybe talked about too much in my haul, and so don't have that much to say about it here. This is Good Talk, a Memoir in Conversations by Mira Jacob. I completely loved this. This video is getting so long. If you want to hear more about this, go watch the haul that I just posted, and you will also be hearing more about this in my best books of 2020. I gave this 5 stars. It's so good. You should read it. Then I did a real quick dip back into Shakespeare, not for the Bard Book Club, just because I like him. I reread Much Ado About Nothing. I've already made a Bard Book Club video about this play, if you want to go check it out. It does contain spoilers, but also I think we all know about what happens in Much Ado About Nothing. I give the play 4 stars. Then I listened to another short story read by CGP Grey that he posted for Christmas, which was The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle by Arthur Conan Doyle. This is a Sherlock Holmes story, and I honestly can't remember if I have read it before. I've read like some random, I know I've read Hound of the Baskervilles, and then I've read some random Sherlock Holmes stories. I was not reading them at all systematically or like in published collections. And I've also watched all of the Jeremy Brett adaptations. Jeremy Brett, the official Sherlock in my mind. And he, yeah, so this is sort of Christmassy crime. No one gets murdered, so, you know, for the holidays. It's about a fabulous blue carbuncle, which someone was attempting to steal, but the theft goes wrong, and then like other people get implicated, and of course Holmes and Watson sort out the whole thing. 4 stars to Blue Carbuncle. Okay, second to last, I was a reread of Call Me By Your Name by André Aciman. I have already done a joint review of this along with what is it called? Our Souls at Night by Kent Haruf, or Haruf. If someone would tell me how to pronounce that, I would love them forever. So this, it had a movie made of it a couple years ago. I think most people have heard of it by now. This was published in 2007. It's set in the 1980s in Italy, and it's about a 17-year-old who gets this like massive crush on a grad student who is staying at his family's house for the summer. So it's a gay love story. It's almost sort of a gay obsession story, and it's such like a lovely, like summery world to be existing in, and I needed some of that in the middle of a Dutch winter. So yeah, this is very lovely. This is my first time reading it since seeing the film. Yeah, so I do know that there's a sequel out. It seems like I should not read the sequel. If you guys have other thoughts, let me know. But yeah, I give this a 4.5. Oh, I think I only gave it a 4 last time. My rating went up because I skipped the boring part in my review. You'll see that I talk about how it just kind of gets kind of boring around 3/4 of the way in, and so I just skipped it. And then my closing book of 2020 was Bryony and Roses by T. Kingfisher. This is my first T. Kingfisher, and certainly not the last. So this is Beauty and the Beast retelling with a focus on gardening. It's like Beauty and the Beast with a gardening knob turned up to 11. So Bryony is our female protagonist, and she is a gardener. So this book, I would say, in order to appreciate this, you do need to know the original French fairy tale of Beauty and the Beast. I don't think you can fully appreciate what's going on in this story if your background is either the Disney version or the Jean Cocteau version. Because I believe I can say this in a way that does not spoil it. I think this is meant to be read as a sequel to the original French version, not as a retelling. I thought that this was, for the most part, fun, but there are also moments of like genuine horror. Like I was scared, so like Bryony is actually a bit of a coward. Like she's intensely afraid of the dark and that there is a monster hiding under her bed. And that was occasionally written, it's in the first person, so it's written with like quite effective scariness. And you really like get into the mindset of someone who has those sorts of phobias, which I used to, mostly don't anymore, thank God. So this is a 4.5 stars, and if you guys have any recommendations on where to go from here with T. Kingfisher, I would love to hear them, otherwise I shall wildly swing about. Okay, we did it. That is the 20 works I got through in December of 2020. I'm the best, guys. I'm the best at reading. It's official. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you hopefully not too long from now with my best books of the year, where we will talk more about some of the books mentioned. Actually, I think all of my best books of the year I read in December. So you will see most of these, or several of these, again shortly.